Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Thrive and our kickoff event. Before I do that, I would like to acknowledge that where we're speaking from is located in an area originally inhabited by Indigenous people and who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Assiniboine, Haudenosaunee, Lenni, and Nape, and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around this beautiful area. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples. My name is Richard Petty. I'm a resident and business owner in Amherstburg, and I'm joined by Lori Bruette, also a business owner in town, and we are both co-chairs of Thrive. We are really looking forward to engaging you as we introduce you to Thrive this evening. But first, some housekeeping matters. The Zoom broadcast will be recorded so residents who missed tonight can access it at a later date. All participants will be muted. We would appreciate if you kept your mic on mute so we can keep any background noise to a minimum. I apologize in advance if you hear my dogs bark, because they're sure to do that. Also, your camera does not have to be on for you to participate. Feel free to turn it off if it makes you more comfortable. As you will see and hear tonight, Thrive really focuses on evidence-based decision-making, learns from international best practices, and always believes the science. And our approach will always be a positive one. We may challenge and debate, but always in a mature, civil, and factual manner. We also definitely welcome civil comments and engagement as we go through this presentation, and we will identify those points in time. When we get to those sections, please raise your hand and we will unmute you. Thanks for spending some time with us tonight to learn about Thrive. They say that knowledge is power, so we hope with what we have to show you tonight educates and inspires you. So please join the Thrive team. Together, we are sure we can make Amherstburg thrive. And now I turn it over to Lori.
Thank you, Richard, and thank everybody for joining us this evening. We're beyond excited to finally be bringing this presentation to you. We appreciate that your time is valuable, so we'll get right to the reason that we're all here. What you're about to see is the combined observations and vision for Amherstburg brought forward by a group of people that are positive, proactive, and evidence-based. This group has passed these observations through many lenses. They've gathered information and feedback, grown and modified them, and consequently developed the presentation that you'll see today. It's likely that your input and insight this evening will inspire updated vision for tomorrow and will continue to evolve in this manner. Next slide, please, Grace. I'd like to show you this slide of our board of directors. As you read through this slide, you may recognize that some or all of these people are on our board of directors list. Next slide, please, Corey. They could be your neighbor, your friend, the person that sells you a coffee or a book at the local store. Maybe he or she belongs to the same club, has coached your child, or given a lecture that you've attended. Perhaps there's someone that's provided you with real estate, legal, or medical advice. Undeniably, they're a board with years of diverse experience and education, and we're very proud of that. But more importantly, they're a collection of positive, proactive, and evidence-based community members. Next slide, please. The first section that we'll share with you this evening is a summary of the key observations about the town of Amherstburg, its council and administration, as well as its investment in the future. Next slide, please. Please really think about what you're seeing, because your evidence and feedback are critically important part of this process. We'll pause for your response at the conclusion of the observations portion. Slide 5. The Amherstburg Community Foundation recently provided council with a presentation sharing their findings and revealing that the waterfront location, the people, and the town's historical significance are the top 3 reasons drawing residents to Amherstburg. Yes, we do have great people, but we also have people that resist change and prefer status quo. We can't have this, especially in a post-pandemic world. We hope to provide new perspective by being positive and sharing accurate information. The question is, are we investing to be even better? We believe that with strong leadership and inspired residents, we could be one of the very best towns in Ontario. The goal is to thrive for generations to come. Our observations with regard to council. It's important to recognize that this presentation was delivered to council in its entirety. Interestingly, many members of council agreed with these observations. Council is largely first term, and they're a work in progress. Yes, but it's imperative that they proclaim a vision for our town. Without intent or vision, how does a town chart its course to move forward? It's important to focus on strategic thinking and avoid getting caught up in tactics. Evidence-based data and best practices must guide all decisions. Firm, educated decision-making will lead us to the big ideas. Council must support and stand by their administration, show confidence for a job well done, and send a positive, cohesive message to the town. I'm going to digress for just a moment to examine two items that are important to reflect on in the context of this presentation: tactics and vision. First, let's take a brief look at how getting caught in tactics occurs. Next slide, please. We've broken it down here into something called the misinformation playbook. This happens in every community, but for some reason, it seems to be particularly prominent in Amherstburg. Often people take part in this without even recognizing what's happening. We encourage everyone to pause, think things through, investigate, and reach out to experts for clarification. Don't just react, make research, evidence-based, informed decisions. In step one, culprits deliberately scare people with misinformation about what a proposed policy will do. Then they wait for the misinformed people to complain. Next, they respond by saying, clearly people are concerned, so we should listen to the people and reject the plan. Next, media reports the controversy, but does not report that it was not factual. Some elected leaders who know the truth will vote against good policy just because they're too afraid of the heat. Next slide, please. Amherstburg's vision. Vision directs all that we do. No vision, no direction. It's critically important in a post-pandemic world. Vision is imperative to recovery. Council says that it does not know what the town is. Thrive thinks it's pretty clear. Amherstburg has no manufacturing, and it's very unlikely that it will ever attract a business that changes the fabric of the town. With its location, history, and events, it's arguably the best town to visit in the county. With investment in open streets and other international best practices in the town, we can strengthen this reputation even further. Amherstburg is a tourist town. The entire town of Amherstburg benefits from the things that we do for our tourists: beautiful parks and gardens, trails, murals, cycling, kayak launches, and a state-of-the-art sports complex. Tourism is more than just restaurants. It's unique shops, events, and places to stay. It's dollars spent that help the town finance improvements as well. Tourism provides jobs, fosters economic development of the town. Next slide, please. Town administration. Our observations here are that people make the difference. The formula for a great administration is to attract, develop, motivate, unleash, and importantly, retain the very best people. Unfortunately, it seems council's first reflex is often to aggressively challenge recommendations instead of fully understanding them. Recommendations for additional staff to handle increased workload or bringing on new talent with important expertise are annually turned down. Next slide. Finally, we need to invest in the future. Recent tax increases have been significantly lower than inflation. 2% in 2021, 0.82% in 2020. Increases this low will not get the job done. Low taxes should never be the imperative for town leadership. History proves that delaying important capital investment costs much more years later. There are a few dollars to invest in exciting new initiatives that will make the town even more attractive to tourists and livable for residents in the future. We understand that residents don't like their taxes going up. Council needs to explain where monies will be invested and how they will make Amherstburg even better. Next slide. Our conclusion is that it's time to seize the moment and become a town that believes in solid values, is educated, inspired, and wishes to become an even better place to live and visit. Amherstburg needs to thrive. Next slide. The mission statement for Thrive Amherstburg is clear. It's to inspire a thriving community through creating connections between best practices and good local governance. Next slide. Thrive, by definition, means to prosper, be successful, flourish, and develop. Fittingly, this collective has taken that one step further and has created an acronym which stands for timeless, healthy, relevant, inspired, valued, and engaged. Next slide. In order to be timeless, we need to protect our history. Amherstburg is so fortunate to be located in a town of historical significance. From our fort to our historical homes and commercial buildings, we must continue to respect this significance and preserve it for future generations. Health can take on so many meanings. What about financial health? Can we ensure financial health so that we can maintain strong resources and achieve our goals for the community? Next slide. What is relevant to us today? In 2019, the town of Amherstburg declared a climate crisis, which has not been acted upon. Should we not address this before it's too late? As an inspired community with a vision in place of being a tourist town, would we not benefit from inspired murals, street art, and imaginative park design, remembering that these attractions draw tourists and tourists equal revenue? Next slide. We realize that valuing and respecting our town staff and residents means keeping our roads safe for pedestrians and cyclists and being mindful and inclusive when considering housing opportunities. And finally, what are we doing here this evening? Engaging, listening to one another is a vital piece of creating a strong community. Next slide. The Amherstburg Collective is a team of volunteers who are educated on good governance and international best practices and are focused on always making evidence-based decisions and believing in the science. Members are prepared to respectfully use their positive voice and influence to help bring about change. Next slide. The collective will publicly champion for a better Amherstburg and will be committed to full transparency. We are an extremely candid group. We have shared all of this information with council and have gained insight from hearing their thoughts. In the spirit of full transparency, we investigated the rules for lobbying within the town, and after due diligence, we confirmed that Amherstburg currently does not have guidelines of this nature in place. The expectation is that the collective members are engaged in understanding the opportunities available to the town and contribute to making Amherstburg even better than it is today. We hope that this describes a lot of you participating today. Next slide. All of the books are summarized on the website and are on display in the window of the River Bookshop. 2 books from the selection of 7 are included with your membership. Who knows, you might even want to read all 7. I did. It's important to note that there's no profit to the bookshop. This is a completely non-profit initiative. Speakers, whether they Zoom or arrive in person, often charge fees, and we need to attract the best speakers out there. All funds are held in the local Libro credit union. Going forward, access to speakers will require membership. Please make sure that you complete the membership form and follow the instructions on the website for payment of annual membership fees. If you require any assistance at all or have feedback, please don't hesitate to complete the Thrive contact form on the website and the person most qualified to answer your question will get back to you as soon as possible. Next slide. Now I'm going to call on board member Jasmine Hurst to speak about Thrive's Youth Network.
Hello. So the Thrive Youth Network is going to be for students aged 14 to 29, and we agreed upon, like we said mentioned earlier, it's free, so there won't be any books provided for this, but you could also see the recommended books there and buy them provided if wanted. So this is just an awesome opportunity to get volunteer hours, internship credits, and it's also amazing on resumes. You can expand your knowledge on placemaking, climate change, and healthy living to develop your leadership skills, and it's a great way to make connections within the community. So we haven't fully set up exactly how we're gonna do meetings and stuff yet, but once we have all of the little tweaks all set up and done, we're gonna post it onto social media for signups.
Excellent. Thank you, Jasmine. I'd like to put it out there for any questions that anyone attending tonight might have of the information that you've heard so far. No questions? Okay.
If anybody would like to ask a question, simply raise your hand in Zoom and I'll mute you, or you can add your question to the chat feature.
We will, it's Richard speaking, we will also give the opportunity when you, after we talk about the 9 initiatives.
Okay.
Okay, Corey, if you want to go to the next one.
Okay.
So I'm going to introduce a concept to you called placemaking. It's something that I'm really not that familiar with either, even though it's been around for 30 years. And what it is a multifaceted approach to the planning, design, and management of the town's public places. In other words, the design and management of Amherstburg. It capitalizes on local assets, Lori's already talked about, and the creativity with the intention of creating public spaces that promote people's health, happiness, and well-being. This is really important. You know, we're going through the pandemic. We're still all locked in, but we're going to come out of this. And it's really important that we design our community so that it is a healthy, interesting place for us to reconnect with our neighbors. We've all been locked in homes, maybe just going to the office or working from home. So the whole post-pandemic action plan is very much part of our thinking. Next slide, please. So placemaking, it will be community driven. You're quiet, no questions. We want you to be involved in this. We will champion initiatives publicly, and we will go also directly to council. We've already told them that they will get a number of what we call white papers, and we'll send them to council 2 weeks before we present, so that they have a chance to read them. And when we do that, we'll also send it out to you. Again, transparency. Now, we know the budget for this year is all set, so there's no additional funding available for whatever we agree on this year. But we think when we go into the budget process in the new year and we're presenting well thought out ideas, that it can influence that spending for 2022. And we're a year and a half away from a municipal election. By that time, we will probably publish 10 white papers, and you can decide whether you like them or don't. You can also watch what council agreed to and didn't agree with, and you can put those out to the people that will be running, and there'll be a lot more than 7, and see where they stand on it. So we think this will really help have a very educated municipal election in 2022. Next slide. So successful placemaking needs, and I can tell you, we're going to bring a speaker in to actually talk about the concept of placemaking. So I'm doing a very top line on it. It requires a vision. We are a tourist town, but tourism helps residents as much or more than actually visitors. A good placemaking group listens to the insights of the community. We will focus on places, not design. We're not going to come up with $2 million sculpture ideas. By triangulation, we mean that things should be connected. Our cycling lanes, our open streets, our parks should all have a flow to them. When you read the theory of placemaking, it also tells you very clearly to ignore the naysayers. This will require patience. Money should not be a knockout punch, but we told the council we won't be bringing them $1 million ideas. And it's going to be an ongoing process for at least the next 18 months, and we hope for a long time. Next slide. Now, talking about placemaking, downtown, it's really important to think about downtown as this. Downtown is the one thing, part of the whole area that belongs to everyone because it contains shopping and entertainment and amenities. It's an attractive, active, engaging town center. It's a contributing reason why people choose to live in Amherstburg. We have Ron Deneau on the phone right now. He sells real estate. He would tell you that when he's bringing people to Amherstburg and they're moving from other areas, and there's a lot of them doing it right now, one of the first things he will do is take them downtown and show them the history and show them the parks. The town identity is and reputation is driven by our downtown image. Downtown drives tourism. Next slide, please. So I'm going to show you 9 that fit the criteria of placemaking. Some of them are quite easy. Some are more difficult. Some we're going to get assistance from Habitat for Humanity. That slide went up. We don't know a lot about affordable housing. So we have as an advisor the head of Habitat for Humanity, Fiona Coughlin. She's the CEO. And we're really fortunate to tie into the University of Windsor's Law Faculty Center for Cities. So they're going to help us out. It's important that as a group, because I'm thinking you're part of the team now, that we get some early wins so we can build awareness of this, confidence, momentum, and we start going in the right direction. Next slide, please. So here's one of the first ones, active transportation. Big phrase, it actually means cycling. And it has all kinds of health benefits. If Tim O'Callaghan was on, who's a big cyclist, he would talk about that. It was really interesting with COVID. What did communities all over the place? They really upped their cycling lanes as a COVID action plan. Don't have to tell you how perfect Amherstburg is for cycling. But to be a successful cycling community, we need a cycling grid and protected cycling lanes. Interestingly, about 3 weeks ago, as we're going through this process, the federal government came out with a pot of money, $400 million for active transportation. We're really pushing the town to request some funds to help pay for it, so not having us pay for it. Next slide. So, you know, we talked and we met with counselors and we had directors talk about this perspective of we need safe streets for families and youth to travel on. Next slide. But it's also important that on certain of them, if you go down Texas Road, it's got cycling lanes, they're great. It's a wide street, you don't need protection. But if we put cycling lanes on Sandwich Street, and probably your heads are going to explode when you hear we're thinking about that, you know, you need bollards to protect it because it has to be safer. Next slide. Well, hand in hand with cycling and safe cycling goes a real attention to speed limits. There's an incredible correlation between speed, death, and serious injury. There's a lot being said, and maybe you've heard of it. It's called Vision Zero. It was invented in Sweden. And there's a whole bunch of Windsor's doing Vision Zero. Amherstburg's not. Toronto is. Not many of them are doing it very well. And what they have told me personally in a meeting I've had with them, one of the keys to safe streets is speed limits. So lowering speed limits will encourage people to participate in other initiatives like cycling and walking because they feel safer. We have a lot of 50 kilometers. We've talked about 40s, but you're going to see from the next slide, there's a real correlation of death and serious industry the faster our cars go. So we're at 50, that's 80% death percentage. And we all know we cheat a bit, right? So we're probably going 60. Now we're up to 95%. So one of the things we will make a case for is lowering speed limits in Amherstburg. And, you know, it may take you another minute to go to Sobeys or to get downtown, but we think that minute is a great investment in a safer community. Next slide. Okay, so parks is very much in the news right now. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of misinformation on it. There's quite a robust master plan. I can tell you it's 131 pages long. I've read it a couple times. It contains a wealth of information. I can tell you also, we're going to have a presentation just on parks. And one of the things it's going to show is that we have not been spending very much money on parks. And our per capita spending versus LaSalle's and Kingsville's and stuff is way down. So we like parks. They address all of Thrive's values. We know there's a big debate about a couple of parks. We don't know what that plan is. No one knows what that plan is. It's a little soon to criticize it or frankly support it. So we're looking forward to having our team, with your help, put it through a placemaking lens. Next slide, please. Okay, climate change, the missing priority. Lori already said, a year and a half ago, we declared a climate emergency. A bunch of communities did that. It was the in thing to do. We haven't taken any action on it. Amherstburg has also been participating in something called the Essex Regional Energy Plan, which I was a participant in as a layman. There were a lot smarter people than me. And they're going before County Council on May 19th. We have 2 votes on that council. It's a very disciplined plan based on science and facts and what we should do. I suspect it'll be approved. We don't know that. We don't have a vote, but I've seen the plan. I suspect it'll be approved. And it's the key is, will we take action on it? I was interviewed on CBC morning show with Tony Doucette this morning, and he asked me about this. He said, Richard, you're Little Amherstburg. Why do you think you should be doing something on climate change? And I said, well, listen, it starts with the federal politics, and then goes to provincial, and then it goes to municipal, and then it goes to industries, and then it goes to all of us. And, someone's got to do something about climate change. We can't just assume someone else is going to do it for us. Now, a lot of what we're talking about, just look at the list there: parks, cycling, gardens, planting trees, all of that is in our initiatives. So we think we're going to have this is a really good plan. And you heard Jasmine talk about, we're bringing youth in. You'll hear us talk about legacy later on in this. I mean, what are we leaving our youth? We're leaving them a real mess. And we only have so much time to address this. And so we're thrilled that Jasmine's heading up a youth thing. I don't know if you know Greta Thunberg, who pickets I think their government buildings every Friday. Who knows? Maybe Jasmine will be sitting outside of council in a couple of weeks. But anyhow, we think this is a big priority. Next slide, please. So everyone's feeling the effects. On June 2nd, we're bringing in a speaker who's going to talk about how it's affecting Essex County. We focus on the icebergs, we focus on the fires in California, we focus on the hurricanes down in Florida, but it's happening right here. And we're going to talk about that. And we hope that really shows you that we should be doing something. The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else is going to save it. We have to do our part in Amherstburg to contribute to making sure that the youth that Jasmine is going to be working with have a future. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of slides on climate change. I thought this one was pretty apropos because, in Essex County, there's a lot of basements flooding with heavy storms, which there are more heavy storms with climate change. And if you live on the coast of, or on the shore of Lake Erie and the winds blow wrong in a bad storm, there's a lot of flooding and a lot of houses are in danger. So if you don't believe in I don't believe in global warming, we thought this was very apropos. Next slide. Public art. We've got a couple murals. It keeps the town lively and attractive. It attracts tourists and day trippers. Creates a little sense of pride. I mean, a little town of Islington outside of Toronto is known as the town of murals. And when you really start looking at who's really good at murals, Pembroke comes up and Huntsville comes up and Sudbury comes up. We could do more on murals, but we can actually take it even further and start taking our art onto the street and sidewalks and using them as canvases. Next slide, please. So again, I was asked about this question on CBC this morning, and it was raised by Councillor Courtney, is it a distraction to drivers? And once again, there is research from St. Paul, Seattle, New York City, that actually doing this is a calming effect on traffic. It slows it down. So not only do we get a prettier town, we get safer streets. Next slide. Historic preservation, Lori mentioned this, it's number 3 in the research done by the foundation, why people like living in Amherstburg. You know, we've really had a lot of downtown hollowed out over the times, and it's really important that we preserve what we have and encourage people to preserve it. So, you know, a number of towns are giving incentives, tax reductions, rebates, and grants or loans to do that. We have to come up with a recommendation on this, but we think it's important. Next slide. Where there is a whole bunch of our history still standing is on Murray Street. And, you know, that's a street that once we start having better businesses on that street and these businesses get fixed up, it's a candidate for closing it off, you know, open streets permanently. But anyhow, this is kind of stuff we should preserve and protect. Next slide. So I'm not gonna, you know, parking, we know that it's an issue, big issue in Amherstburg. Frankly, it's an issue in every community. We're no different. We're not going to come forward and say that we should eliminate parking spots. That's not our initial focus. You know, we do believe that there is actually plenty of parking spots in Amherstburg, but we don't have the research to prove that. There are a lot of places right now, and I'll just flag one. Paris has 140,000 and they're going down to 70,000. So it's done. The issue that we want to talk about is parking minimums. And you may have never heard about that. It started in about the 1930s in the Midwest. And a town said, you know what, for every hotel room or theater or bank, you have to put in a minimum amount of parking. We've had that happen to us. Look at, there's 3 banks downtown, the TD, Scotia, et cetera, that have parking lots around them. They're never full, but they had to do that for parking minimums. Parking minimums are antiquated. They make no sense. And if you're trying to do something in town with it, you know, building something, it almost makes it unaffordable. Just in the last couple of days, the city of Minneapolis, 13 councilors voted unanimously to eliminate parking minimums. There is plenty of research and data on this one. We look forward to bringing this to council, not to reduce parking spots. We just don't want to increase more. Next. So we met and we had 10 things that we chose to focus on, wanted to decide what we focus on, and we focused on 2 initially. We planned to get to the entire list I've shown you. One is streets for people, and we had 2. We had something called, we had open streets or open air, and we had streets for people. We combined that into one, and we'll talk about affordable housing because it's very important and it's in the news in Amherstburg. Next slide. So what are streets for people? It's making them more pedestrian and cyclist friendly. It's prioritizing people over cars. We're not kicking cars out. We're not making it real tough. We're just prioritizing people over cars. Streets don't automatically belong to cars. Research indicates, and there's again a body of work here, you know, it doesn't happen in all markets, but overwhelmingly it does. If you're redesigning streets, it causes more shoppers and more business. We also, I don't know if you know this, we have an obesity and overweight problem in this county. Don't know the numbers for Amherstburg, but we're in a county where 64% have those problems. So it could be a major redesign or smaller strategic fine tuning. We're going to not get into a major one right now. We're going to look at fine tuning. Next slide, please. So good cities know that they are for people, not just cars. Great cities know that streets are places to linger and live and not just move through. Next slide. This is a picture of a street in Copenhagen. It was only a decade ago, if you saw this picture, it was just jam-packed of cars, packed with cars, no pedestrians, no cyclists. Which one would you rather have in your town? Next slide. It also can happen quickly. This is a picture of a town, a city in Europe. And this is what this street looked like in 2018. This is what it looks like right now. Not expensive. They have narrowed the street. The street in this case might be only for emergency vehicles, but it can be done quickly and inexpensively. And there are some streets we should consider it for Amherstburg. Next slide. I don't know if anyone recognizes this. Anyone want to put their hand up and say they recognize this?
Is that in Harrow?
Yeah, so there's Lyndon, okay, and Crane, yes, he's got that. So you've all driven through Harrow. It's got some great old buildings, and they just approved a complete redesign of their main street and at least one of the side streets. And this is what they're going to turn the downtown of Harrow in. Now, Harrow, not heroin, Harrow. They also are spending $4.6 million. Have to find out from the town of Essex, which I think Harrow's in that area, how they did that. But it shows that, you know, other communities are not standing still, they're investing, and it can be pretty special. Next slide. So open streets, when we talked about it, our first board meeting, we actually had that board meeting the night after open air was voted on favorably 4-2. And we talked about, do we have to focus on open air? I mean, it's been approved. We agreed as the Thrive team that we did, because we believe the focus next spring should not be on whether open air is used again or placed again in 2022. It should be how it can be adapted and made better. All of the numbers, when it comes to best practices, communities all over the world prior to COVID were doing open streets. Then it exploded during COVID. There's hard data, again, I've already referred to it, that businesses don't suffer as a norm. And there's hard science that, you know, you should be outside in the fresh air. Not only is it healthy for, we already talked about obesity and being in shape, but also social distancing and the chance to get infected outside is much lower. So we're a big fan of open streets. We just wanted to learn each year and be better. Next slide. Yeah, I don't know if you recognize these pictures. That's open streets last year. Pretty cool. Next slide. And it's not just closing the streets and having the restaurants put out their seating, etc. Performing arts are really important, and Rhoda's group does an amazing job on a small budget to bring this in to really activate the street. It was very interesting. Councillor Crew, who voted for open streets, before we showed him this slide, he said, you know, we should have more programming. I said, well, good segue. Good segue, because that's the next slide, and this is what we showed him. Next slide. So our final one is affordable housing. It's in the news. There's a lot of misinformation about this as well. We don't know if some of the parkland will be used for affordable housing. So we need to separate the debate away from misinformation and fully understand the facts. I can tell you, so we have a real shortage of affordable housing in rental units right now, in ownership units, and by 2028, it gets a lot greater. And these are for people, you know, they are single parent households. These are seniors. These are people with disabilities. They are young people. We want to keep them in the community. How can they buy a house that with the prices going up so much? So it's that group. And once again, lots of research, a lot of common misconceptions about affordable housing. Property values do not decline. I mean, I'm sure there's examples where they have, but the great majority, they do not decline. Crime does not increase. And the new residents they attract fit into the community quite nicely. So on June 14th, Fiona Coughlin from Habitat for Humanity and Leanna Farah, who's an expert on affordable housing, are going to talk about affordable housing. So you understand a lot more about it. With regards to should it be in our parks, let's just wait and see the plan. I know there's going to be public viewings and public discussions about it. They're going to have a couple of that. I've talked to we've talked to town administration. You'll get a chance to say, but have an open mind. and think about why it's important to Amherstburg. Next slide. So these are quite up to date, upcoming speakers. So we're having a, thank you for coming tonight, the 17th. We're gonna be back on the 25th. I think we're gonna change the thing. We're having people say, we'd like to know more about your directors. And we're working on a concept right now. We will be back with a free Zoom on May 25th. Just go on thriveamherstburg.com events section and find out. You're gonna find it very interesting. As I said already, affordable housing on June 14th. We also have the climate crisis on June 2nd. Next slide. We're gonna have good parks planning. We haven't figured out a date on that. As I said, we're bringing in a speaker who will tell you, knows a lot more about placemaking than us and why it's relevant and important to us. And if you were at the Jason Thorne presentation that the Amherstburg Community Foundation put on, there was 150 in the room. It was outstanding. I've asked Jason to come back and to look at our Thrive plan and to critique it, to tell you, because you'll be on talking to Jason, how it could be better, what we should avoid, what we should do more of. He's going to do that. So we have 4 confirmed right now, 4 speakers. We have 5 confirmed, but we don't have dates yet, and we're working on others. As Lori said, right now, to build awareness and get people interested in Thrive, these Zoom presentations are free, but we want to really get the people that are vested in this concept, who join the collective, and some of these presentations, you'll have to be part of our team to get them. But this is part of the education, the books and the speakers and participating. So on that note, you were quiet the first wave. Do you have comments, questions for Lori and I, and maybe Jasmine, on what we've shown you, because we're just a couple slides away from wrapping up. This is one shy group.
If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand and I can unmute you. I've got one here. Just
Actually, we've got 2 questions.
Yep. Carolyn Davies, you can go ahead.
Hi, Carolyn. Hi, Carolyn.
Okay. Well, we can come back to Carolyn.
Okay.
We'll go to Stu Smith.
Steve?
Stu Smith, yep. Oh, Carolyn, are you on?
We're good.
I am back.
Okay. I defer.
Sorry.
That's
So
okay.
I just want to say I'm impressed with the presentation. All of the topics are critical to Amherstburg. Certainly, I think that there are a number of other issues that we could delve into at another point. Like I made a few chat comments about electricity storage, which is a greater issue, but would be benefit Amherstburg as far as climate change goes. Certainly, my bailiwick right now is making sure that any affordable housing is people can live in dignity, that not the old Regent Park style that occurred in ghettoization of people in Toronto, that they themselves converted many years later. And Michael Prue can speak to that because he lived in the old models. But I think we have to pay attention to that anything we build has to be built so that those people feel good about who they are and can integrate better into the community. Proper size windows so they can see outside. There's 2 horrible buildings on, I've been, as a nurse practitioner, I've been into no balconies. People in wheelchairs and walkers can't even be outside. So now, in fact, with COVID, they're locked inside their houses. And even when they come outside, there's not even a garden or a gazebo for them to sit under. So I think we have to make sure the town makes a decision about that they can approve or not approve buildings that don't meet those mental health needs that everybody requires. That's my comments.
Well, Carolyn, thank you very much. First of all, on affordable housing, Councillor Prue mentioned that he grew up in Regent, so he talked very favorably about affordable housing. Regent Park, you're right. Regent Park, you probably also know that it was one of the high crime areas, just a horrible living experience. They've redone it, designing it much the way you described it, and it's now not even on the radar for crime, and it's a wonderful place to live. So when you make sure on the 14th of June, you listen to Fiona and Leanne Ferret, and they are the ones championing and will help us. We're not the experts on affordable housing. So you probably know more than us. So I would agree with everything you said. With the electric storage, you know, we've already got questions about certain things should we get involved with. We're into placemaking, we're into public space. We're not into infrastructure. That's not going to be our expertise. That is part of a livable community. So electric storage will not be ours. I can't remember if it's in the Essex Regional Energy Plan. I think it is. I'm hoping that we're going to bring them in to give the citizens, the residents of Amherstburg, some insight to what's in there, because we really think we need to have an action plan, and that's part of it. So 2 really good points, Carolyn. Thank you very much. Next question.
We'll go to Stu Smith.
Yeah,
Hi,
thanks.
Steve. Good
Hi.
evening.
Good evening. I just first of all, love the approach. I love the research-based approach that you've taken on this, and the fresh ideas and fresh blood gets my blood just pumping. So with that said, what's a framework, I guess, that you would have in mind for idea sharing or ideas that could complement the vision that's out there now versus just spitballing and throwing a whole bunch of ideas out there? Is there anything that you've considered to say, like, hey, here's kind of a parking lot of ideas, or here's a parking lot, or here's how we're going to consolidate some ideas that could complement what's out there?
Well, we've identified 9, and believe me, there's lots more, Steve. So we're going to bring in speakers on the topics. We want, and that's why we want people to join, because we want to get the people that are really prepared to spend some time reading books, listening to speakers, and thinking about it, and we'll bring you together. We will prepare white papers. If you look up the definition of a white paper, it's used in business, it's used in politics, to really outline where we stand. And we'll welcome your input, and, you know, here's a tactic you should consider, or here's something we should avoid, and we'll be all ears. We're really going to try to engage you.
How would you like that done? Like a phone call, an email?
No, we're going to have sessions where, you know, I'm hoping that we can get together as a group at some point, but unfortunately, probably for the next month or 2, it'll be Zoom, and we can just open it up. Who wants to really talk and listen? Again, we're happy with being challenged. We're happy to have ideas that are built upon, but bring your data, bring your information. We're not looking, you know, sometimes opinion's okay, but we like it backed with facts.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Stu, that's okay.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Stu.
Right. Sorry.
It's mice type. I can hardly read it.
No problem.
Okay, we'll go to Tim O'Callahan.
Hi, my name's Bronte O'Callahan. I'm a student in grade 11, and I had a really quick question about the youth group that was being discussed earlier. So I was wondering, if I were to be a part of the youth group, would I also be able to partake in activities with the larger group in terms of guest speakers and meetings?
Jasmine, if you want to build on this, I'm comfortable with it, but I think I can answer this one. Absolutely. You know, part of our evolution as we went through, you know, we changed the definition. We always said an individual is one, but then instead of just a couple, we opened it up to families. And the last thing we said, you know, students can't afford this. And so we came up, and that was Jasmine and Lisa Porter, who are both on our board. And so you get the same rights as, except for the books, you get the same rights as everyone else. Jasmine, anything you want to add to that?
No, what you said was great.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a few questions in the chat here that I'll just read off. The first one is from Cindy. Do you have plans at all to reallocate the high schools that will be closing to community spaces, perhaps some affordable housing units? I've wondered if those facilities could be useful.
Again, that's probably ahead of our pay grade. You know, that we met with all of the town administration on Friday, by the way. We took them through the same presentation. the parks people, the planning people, and Rhoda's group. So they knew we've been very transparent. Those heavy lifting things, that's really got to come from the town. I hope that since you mentioned affordable housing, that whatever comes forward reflects what Fiona and Leanne talked about. So we don't see necessarily in those ones creating the plans, but we sure would like to have a look at them. Carolyn talked about what she'd like to see. And so want to get, whoever, we don't expect of all the members in the collective, you might not want to get involved in cycling. You might not want to get involved in parks. You'll pick the topic. Maybe some of you have got lots of time in your hand, you will get involved in all 9. So that's one that we're not going to jump in and say we should have affordable housing in this area. We're going to help the town, but we're not going to do the town's job for them.
Okay.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, the next question is from Tony. How are we able to apply to become involved in a larger way? Should we have subject matter expertise to share?
Well, go on thriveamherstburg.com, go to join, fill out the questionnaire. You'll be giving us your phone number and your email address. And when we start drilling down on certain of these, we will put out a call that we are having a meeting, and we will invite you. And you can decide, I like that one, I want to participate, or I don't.
Okay. Next one is from Pat. I've not heard a lot about how the funds from membership will be used. Will there be an approved budget, and how is the use of the funds reported back to membership?
We're not making profits, but this is not a registered nonprofit. The $50 we're charging will cover, it'll be more than exhausted by the cost of books, buying advertising time. We're on Facebook. We are in the Rivertown Times. The cost of all the digital stuff we're doing, we're hoping for break even. So it's profits. Nonprofits is really not an issue for it. It's not a profit maker. And if it doesn't make money, we'll make sure that some directors chip in and cover the miss.
Okay. When the board meets, this one's from Carolyn. When the board meets and all other and at other meetings, will minutes be published so that all members can keep up to date and informed about discussions, etc.?
That's an interesting. Let us think about that. We have done minutes in our board meetings. Let me ask when we next meet at a board. Thanks for the idea.
Okay. We've got a question live here from Mike. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hello guys. My name is Michael. Fantastic group you came up with. My first question is, what prompted the group? And then my second question is, what opportunities are there for collaboration between other community groups within Windsor and the Detroit area?
Okay, what prompted the group? Lori and I listened to the BIA concept, and there's been a lot of talk about a BIA, and it was pitched to us, and both Lori and I are very aware of BIAs. I've been a contributor, and and lived at a BIA, so I sure know about them. They do good things. But our advice to Ann Rhoda and what she should take back to council, by the way, we told council this, that it's a non-starter in this town, that there's not enough businesses to support it. But maybe one day they will. So we thought about, well, a BIA really focuses on the business. What are the issues and opportunities that go beyond the business? And hence we came up with Thrive. We started showing it to some people like Dan Jimis and others, and it started to evolve. And then we started thinking, boy, we needed certain expertise. We wanted someone great on climate change. We wanted someone on affordable housing. We wanted health and wellness. And we ended up with the group that we have. So that was what we're doing. this is Thrive Amherstburg, but what we're talking about applies to any small community in Ontario or beyond that. We're taking ideas from all over. They can be applied everywhere. So if those communities want to join and the collective, they're welcome and participate and learn. We're happy with that. If they want to learn about placemaking and affordable housing, please join. To actually meet with them, that's not in our plan. We are working with the Center for Cities at the University of Windsor, which has also got a close relationship with the City of Windsor. We could have some, but we're not looking for partnerships with other towns. We're happy to then participate and to learn, but we got a hands full just doing this one.
Fantastic. And what about other community organizations that are similar to yours? Let's say from Southwestern Ontario and beyond.
I can't say. I can tell you, 880 cities. That's cities should be good for 8-year-olds to 80-year-olds. That's a really good one. That's worldwide. C40 cities is another really good one. They're out there. I follow them. I follow Climate Reality too. There's a lot of sources I follow. I can't say who is in Southern Ontario.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question comes from Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello. I hate to come off as a cynic right now because I love a lot of what I'm hearing tonight, but is there an actual, an action plan on how to actually do this? I know there's the idea of the talks and the books and all that sort of stuff, but my cynical mind is saying this is just an echo chamber where you have a lot of people who already agree with this stuff. What's the action plan to get the people who don't agree with this stuff, right? We bring it to town council, they say no. What happens next?
Well, we've already said we're going to put it out there, have people engaged, educate them. So hopefully the group that is following us thinks it's a good idea. When it goes to council, council listens to its residents. We want them to listen to the residents, but not the misinformation of residents or ideas that haven't been fully thought out. We hope that, there's 7 councillors there. There's 6 smart men and 1 smart woman. I'm hopeful that, we're hopeful that they will follow what we recommend. There's no guarantee. The action step is creating a white paper that goes to council that's really well thought out and hopefully gets them to agree with all or part of what we recommend.
Okay, yeah. And I understand that. And once again, like I said, I hate to sound cynical because I agree with a lot of what's being said tonight. How do we reach the parts of the community that aren't going to be, is there a plan to reach the parts of the community that aren't going to be listening to the speakers, reading the books, so that we can get them on the same side?
You can help. Hopefully this is passed by word of mouth. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your families, talk to the people in business. We're buying Facebook ads for all the area. We were in the Rivertown Times. There's frankly only so much we can do.
Okay,
we're going to need you to bring them along.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of what I was wondering, like the Facebook ads, the Rivertown Times, all that sort of stuff. Like, what is going to be done to
and
reach
we've
out?
got, and thanks to Corey Renault, who's hosting this, we have for a business, for a community group that's been together that's been live for all of something like 6 days. We've got very robust, really excellent 4 social media platforms. Our website tells you everything you need to know about it. It talks about upcoming speakers. And also there's a news section that we're constantly looking for examples of communities that have done something very cool, very placemaking that works. I saw one from a little community called Roosevelt in Phoenix today. There's just so much information out there, and this is a news section that's going to be refreshed constantly. Follow that. Almost every day there'll be something new. There won't be old stuff after 14 days. We're getting rid of it. That news section alone will give you lots of information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a question in the chat from P. McAllister. Will this presentation be available after the meeting?
Yes, Steve, you must have missed. Is this Steve McAllister that I know?
It actually says P. McAllister, so.
Okay. Yes, we said at the opening that we're recording it and we will put it out and you're able to access on via our website, I think, Corey, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we'll send out a link as well on our social channels, and will be available directly from the website.
Okay, thank you. I just arrived a little bit late. I missed
Oh,
that.
that's okay.
Perfect. Okay. Are there any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand and
we'll take a couple more questions. We're about the timing that we manage. Great questions. Thank you. Just one thing, we've shown you 9 concepts, and we are actually going to offer you the opportunity to go on thriveamherstburg.com. Is it slash?
Yeah, slash.
So thriveamherstburg.com slash poll, POLL. And we ask you to vote on your top 3. You can't vote for 4 because it'll kick you back, but vote on what you think are the top 3. That doesn't mean that that's going to be our top 3, because we've got to collectively decide what are the ones we should focus on first. But we thought it'd be really interesting, and what we showed you tonight, which 3 really interested you. So that'll be up, Corey, almost immediately, and you can vote thriveamherstburg.com/poll. So I'm going to turn it over to Lori now to wrap up.
Thank you, Richard. The conclusion that we've drawn is based on our legacy. At the end of the day, it's all about communicating, finding commonalities, tapping into our strengths to address our weaknesses, and making a sense of place. Thrive believes that the values and initiatives discussed here today do just that. Let's ask ourselves what we're leaving for the next generation. The way that we respect our health and the health of others, move our bodies, express ourselves through art, use our streets and public spaces, embrace the desire to have excellent neighborhoods, protect our natural environment, and preserve our history. If we truly engage with evidence, ideas, and positive voice, our gift to our children and their children, our legacy, will spring from actions as placemakers, builders, and guardians of the best town in Canada. Thank you all for joining us.
Next slide. So that brings to a conclusion our presentation. Thanks for all the questions. Within about 24 hours, we'll be posting the theme of the presentation the 25th. You'll get to meet our board members. Lori told you about them. And you'll get a chance to talk about each of those. I think we're going to cover about 6 initiatives that night. And then after that, you can sign up for the climate crisis Essex County portion, and then affordable housing. But watch our website constantly for complete updates on everything we're doing. So thanks again. It's only with all of us coming together will Amherstburg truly thrive. Thanks, everyone.